Good morning and welcome back to the channel. Thanks so much for your continued support. We're heading towards 4,000 subscribers. If you'd like and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. Today, a first in a new series, My Favorite Composers. The great Austrian composer Anton Bruckner, 1824 to 1896, has become a staple in the orchestral repertoire. Compared to Mahler, whose reputation has grown exponentially since the 1940s, Bruckner has been a little more of a slow burn, like his sprawling symphonies. And while I love the large romantic canvases of Mahler, Bruckner is one of my favorite composers. His sound world, especially the sound resounding like the echoes of St. Florian Cathedral in Bruckner's hometown of Linz, where he was the organist and composed many of his symphonies. Large orchestral works written for large orchestras. And much like Beethoven, Mahler, not counting the unfinished 10th Symphony, of course, Dvorak and Schubert, 9 symphonies only. Bruckner died without completing the finale of his 9th Symphony. I was brought up on Bruckner and Mahler. Both were staples in our house when I grew up as an army brat in Germany. My father, a professional musician and music director in the British Army, loved Bruckner, and like me, Bruckner edged out his passion for Mahler. I didn't understand or even like the strange covers of the mono CBS records available in Westphalia at the time, primarily my father's go-tos, Bernstein for Mahler and Bruno Walter for Bruckner. As I go through my recommendations today, these are for both performance and sonics. Not accounting for sonics, Bruno Walter and others I'll mention would be superb choices for their insight into Bruckner. Mahler and Bruckner seem inexorably linked. I even attempted to read a book about the two my father needed for his studies at the Royal Military School of Music, Kneller Hall. Many scholars these days don't agree about the similarities, but there is no doubt that for many years they were musically joined at the hip. In fact, Gustav Mahler called a sometime lecturer at the Vienna Conservatory his forerunner. There's lots of information on the web about Bruckner. I think Ken Russell did a short film about him. It was odd, a little like Bruckner. More country bumpkin than urbane sophisticate. A devout Catholic, he never married but asked many underage girls for their hand in marriage. He also had a very unhealthy interest in dead bodies and coffins. Let's not go there. Leaving the weirdness aside, the quality of his work is in no doubt, especially his 9 symphonies. Like most people with great classical composers, I have my favorite works. I'll show you a couple of sets worth exploring, but I'm going to focus on my favorites, symphonies number 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. The youthful symphonies certainly have fine qualities. The Study Symphony, actually he wrote 2. Symphony number 1, 2, and 3, all wonderful. I left out number 6, very fine of course, but not my cup of tea. Let's talk briefly, very briefly, about the editions of his symphonies. Briefly, otherwise the edition Nazis will let loose. Truly ridiculous zealotry all over the web about the merits of this or that edition. Or worse, the completists. Those composition hacks who attempted to complete the outline to the Symphony No. 9 finale. Simon Rattle made sense of it in his Berlin recording, but why bother? The ending of the 9th Adagio is about as transcendent a piece of music you can experience. No ego-composing cobbling needed. As for editions, for the most part, Leopold Novak will do. He was the musicologist who edited many of Bruckner's works for the International Bruckner Society. So to the recommendations. The greatest conductors of Bruckner's symphonies include Eugen Jochum, Bruno Walter, Otto Klemperer, and Karl Böhm. You can build an exceptional cycle with a mix of these conductors. And for audiophiles, Klemperer and Jochum had EMI and Böhm Decca to record their performances. So before we get started on the vinyl, I'll give you some suggestions for compact discs, and these are of complete sets of the Bruckner symphonies. They're very, very good, and it'll make you very happy musically and sonically. Like I said, the vinyl ones I'm going to choose will give you specific ones that I think are the absolute tops. But these are very good. The first one is by Stanislav Skrovatchevsky. He's quite famous as a Bruckner conductor, conducting the Rundfunk Symphony Orchestra Saarbrücken. And that's on Ohm's Classic. I'll put it up on the screen for you. Now, Stanislav Skrovatchevsky has an interesting reputation. The London orchestral players can be very cruel at times, as can most, but they're quite cynical in London for the amount of money they get and how hard they have to work. And they nicknamed Mr. Skrovaczewski as Stanislav Skrowadowski, which is not really fair because he's actually a very good conductor. But that's a very good set. All the symphonies on Ohm's Classic. Sounds good. Very consistent interpretation. If you want to go for probably the very best on compact disc, one of the greatest conductors is Eugen Jochum for Bruckner. He has two sets, one on Deutsche Grammophon. I'll put this up there. It's with the Bavarian Radio Symphony and the Berlin Philharmonic. It's on Deutsche Grammophon. I had it on LP. Fine playing, very good interpretations, but of course the DG sound. So that box set went to my nephew, who's enjoying it. And you can get the Bruckner 9 symphonies on Warner Classics. It was originally EMI with the Staatskapelle Dresden, conducted by Jochum. And it really is, it's very fine. It's beautiful playing. The Dresden Staatskapelle are just fantastic for Bruckner. It's EMI recording, EMI Victrola. It's not the EMI team from London that went over. And they recorded in the Lucas Church. And it's very good, but I've heard better. And in some ways, I prefer his interpretations with the Berlin Phil and the Bavarian Radio Symphony. I'll also put his set, how it looks on EMI, on the box set for the vinyl. Again, if you want the whole series, if you're a completist and you want the whole symphonies 1 through 9, this is as good as any. Again, Jochum is wonderful. I'll also put a link to Eugen Jochum conducting on YouTube the Concertgebouw Orchestra, Bruckner Symphony No. 7, the finale. Actually, I think it's the whole symphony, but you should listen to the finale, which is very exciting, and the ending, just to see how he conducts the Concertgebouw and the sound they make in a concert hall in Osaka in 1986. I've never heard anything like it. It's absolutely magnificent. I'll link that below. So now to the vinyl. Starting with Symphony No. 4. This is Karl Böhm, the Vienna Philharmonic, on Decca. Beautifully recorded in the Sofian Saal. 2 LPs. And you can't really do better than that. I will put up a picture of what I think is the absolute best Symphony No. 4. This is, I would say, No. 2. No. 1 for me is Otto Klemperer with the Philharmonia on an early Columbia HMV EMI, which you can't get in good condition for less than a lot of money, unfortunately. There is this Haiku reissue from Analog Sources from Abbey Road. It's awful. I was so disappointed. I also gave it to my nephew. He's the benefit of all my Bruckner failings. But it's just, they rob it of the magnificence of that recording. What's so fantastic about that recording, if you listen to Bruckner 4, the famous opening, I'll put up it on the screen, with the tremolandos, as he always begins, very mysterioso, then a gorgeous horn call. Not terribly high, but challenging because it's so famous. But the horn playing on here, on the Vienna Phil, is wonderful. Günther Högner, probably. One of the 2 or 3 principals is wonderful. But Alan Civil plays it with the Philharmonia, and it's magnificent. But it's not what Klemperer does with the opening solo. It's what he does with the answering phrases when the woodwinds take it over. And he does a lift. Again, I'll put the music on the screen. He does a lift. It's in 2/2 time. And he just does this lift as they continue up the scale. It's so beautiful. I've never heard anybody else do it. It's magnificent. So if you can get a Columbia Klemperer, I was brought up on the mono version, but if you can get the stereo version, which is even better, it's wonderful, but it is expensive. But in lieu of that, this is a very fine alternative. At the end of the first movement, when the horns, all 4 of them, and probably the bumper, so there's 5 horns, play that opening phrase on the horn, but triple F, it's just an incredible moment. It's when Bruckner really comes into his own as a composer. I'll put that up on the screen as well. It's, listen for that. And the Vienna horns en masse. No one better to do it. So that's a very good one. And it sounds fantastic, the Decca. Symphony No. 5, another one of my favorites. This is Otto Klemperer on EMI. It's two records, so 4 movements, 2 on each record. A magnificent piece of music, just unbelievable melodies, a gorgeous, gorgeous adagio, as all Bruckner's adagios are. And it's done in Kingsway. It's magnificent. Now, if you don't have this, if you can't find this on vinyl, the compact disc of this is wonderful. I had it for many years. It was one of my test CDs. At the beginning of the slow movement, you can actually hear the air conditioning come on in Kingsway, really quite loudly. It's very lovely to hear. The CD is wonderful, but this vinyl, I got it about 2 months ago, and I've played it a lot. It's better than the CD, let's just put it that way. But there it is. It's a little bit later Columbia. Not cheap, I'm afraid. Again, I missed the 6 for lots of different reasons. If you love the 6, good on you, but it's not my cup of tea. This is the 7th. Now, the 7th is probably Bruckner's most beautiful symphony. I mean, it's the one I've played, and I've never conducted any Bruckner symphony, but the one I've played. It's not difficult to play, but of course, to get the sound right. And this is a very nice middle-of-the-road performance by Schulte and the Vienna Philharmonic, again in the Sophiensaal in Vienna. Sounds wonderful. It's a Decca. So old that the inner sleeves still smell musty. I can't get the smell out of the box, but it's actually quite interesting. But Schulte is a very mainstream interpretation. The sound is, again, excellent. The orchestra is wonderful. If I was going to go for my perfect 7th, again, it would be Klemperer, but it's on Columbia. You can't find them in stereo in good shape. And if they are, they're $400 or $500. They're very expensive. So I had to go to my second choice, and that would be Schulte. But it's a very good second choice. And this is a lot less money. This is like $50, $60 on Discogs. Now, the last 2 symphonies, the 8th and the 9th, both have the same conductor and the same orchestra. Carl Schuricht, a very, very underrated conductor. This is the Testament reissue, as is the 9th. Now, the 8th Symphony is very interesting. I think it's Bruckner's greatest symphony. I mentioned my father earlier on in the video, being, he wasn't a Bruckner scholar, but he knew a lot about Bruckner and loved it. And we would have arguments as we got older and as I was studying music, and he would say, no, the 7th and the 9th, that was beautiful. And they are. If I was going on prettiness and intense beauty, I would say the 7th and the 9th kind of beat all comers for Bruckner. But there's something in this symphony that the 7th and the 9th don't have. I can't put my finger on it. It's an emotional wallop that this gives you in all the movements. The slow movement, the opening, I can't even imagine trying to conduct it. It's very, very difficult. The slow movement is magnificent. And the orchestra here, the Vienna Philharmonic, this again is a Testament reissue. It sounds wonderful. 2 records. This is record 1, I think, of the 2. I'm not sure, but you can see there's his master's voice. Yeah, this is record 1 of the 2. What's fun about this symphony is you get the first 3 movements, which are great, and it's got a fantastic scherzo. But then you have that finale with the very, very clipped grace notes, fast, and then the trombones and the tuba come in. And even people who don't like Bruckner like that. And I'll put that up on the screen. It's fantastic. So that's a great symphony and a must-have. But the Schuricht one, not expensive. Testament. And Testament, no financial affiliation, no gravy train, as they say. But Testament do have very, very good customer service, and they ship to Canada from their British site very, very quickly. And the records are in great shape, flat and silent vinyl. So that's a good one. And finally, to what many people consider Bruckner's most beautiful work, the great Symphony No. 9, unfinished, ending on that glorious adagio. As I mentioned earlier, what possibly could top that adagio? Not much, especially these cobbled versions by these musicologists, in quotes. So let's leave it to Bruckner. I think when Bruckner was finishing the 9th, he was on his knees one day praying. He was a devout Catholic, as I mentioned. And the maid came in and he was saying, God, just let me finish the 9th. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. He died before he could start the finale. And this is a Testament again, cream version, cream label. Just a glorious. But the Vienna Philharmonic, I mean, they are the Bruckner Orchestra with the Viennese horns, the Bruckner oboes and bassoons, that incredible string section. They are the Bruckner Orchestra for these massive sonorities. Philharmonia run them close, very close. CBS Orchestra and Bruno Walter, they're not quite in the same league. They do a great job. It's a pickup orchestra in LA or New York. LA Phil or New York Phil with a lot of session players. And it's very good, but they've got Bruno Walter. If you want the most perfect musical experience, not sonic experience, then, you know, I would grab Walter anytime. But as I mentioned, Jochum, Klemperer, Karl Böhm, these guys, and Schuricht, these guys are fantastic Bruckner conductors. So there you go. If you're a Mahler fan and you haven't delved into Bruckner yet, please do. I think you'll really love it. There are so many magical moments, musical moments, intensely musical moments that can really move you with Bruckner that I don't find with many other composers. We have two team members, Jesus Gonzalez Monreal, who's a Mahler, I would say a scholar, but also an aficionado. Also, my great friend Charles Brown, fantastic writer also. They're both Mahler, connoisseurs and aficionados, and I'm slowly getting them into Bruckner. Begrudgingly, they admit that he's amazing. But you can do both. I mean, Mahler's incredible, and so is Bruckner. Anyway, your choice. Enjoy. I hope this gives you a little bit of a background on some of the best recordings to get. If you're a vinyl obsessive guy like me and you want to get the very best pressings, you will not go wrong with those pressings if you get near mint on Discogs or you get them Testament. They're wonderful. Thanks again for watching. As always, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate that, and things are going very well with the channel. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next video.